some degree of culpability here that led to this whole thing. Now, we're not saying that we're going to let anyone off the hook, but if we're really going to get down and dirty and want reform and all these other things, there has to be community reform as well.
And you're absolutely right that this is where the reform must start. But I will tell you this. It's apparent that it is easier to point the finger of blame at someone instead of doing something about the problem. Let's point at these children who are undereducated and uneducated and figure out what do we need to do about it. If you look at numbers, at the last count I looked at, 88% of our prison population is either uneducated or undereducated. That tells you something. That in itself tells you something.
Sure, it does.
But when you look at our schools, and I have children in our program, and we go through these things every Saturday, nobody is teaching these children about social skills, social living, how to live in a community. Nobody's doing that. I get upset when I talk to some ex-offenders who come out and they want to tell me about all the degrees they got while they were locked up. I cannot begin to tell you how many come out that are preachers, pastors, ministers. Why couldn't you do those things before?
Right.
I'm even reluctant to have them come in and talk to our children because I don't want them sending a message to the children that you got to go to jail first.
Right.
You got to do something stupid first. But let me try to continue with this.
Okay.
In the 60s, during the civil rights movement, when many of us, and I was one of them, when we were afraid to even look at white people, when there was a fear of what white people could do to you, but we were tired of it. Now, we were tired of it, but now what are you going to do about it? We didn't know. Here's what they did for us, Mike. They taught us, Chief, they taught us how to be involved. They taught us nonviolence. They taught us, listen to the word taught. We were taught how to deal with this madness that was imposed or being imposed on our communities, on our culture. Why are we not teaching our children today? Let me try to go further. Do we have bad police officers? Yeah, but I got a bad trash man. I got a mailman that delivers my mail to the wrong address.
Okay,
we got good and bad in everybody.
That's right.
Now, what are we going to do if the mailman delivers my mail to the wrong house? Am I going to go get my mail and throw it in the middle of the street because I'm angry with him because he delivered my... No, I'm going to have a conversation with him. And it's not going to be a rude conversation because he does deliver my mail.
That's right.
Okay. Now, let's look at things up close and personal. We got a bad situation in our country today. And these folks are coming out from everywhere they've been. You've got people who don't like black people. You've got people who don't like America. So the question becomes, do you give them what they want and end up in the grave, or do you become smarter than they believe you are? So I go from being taught to being smarter. We're not smart about how we deal with these things. I was talking to a mother and her son 2 weeks ago, and he didn't believe that the police treated him fairly when they stopped him, and he wanted to complain, and he wanted to go file a complaint. And so I told him where he needed to go to file that complaint. But, Chief, let me tell you what I actually knew. The complaint probably is not going to go anywhere.
Why is that?
That desk sergeant is going to take that complaint and put it in some box that nobody ever looks at. Here's the problem. Why do we not understand you need people to follow these complaints? You need to let your police department know that you are smarter than thinking, I'm just going to give you a piece of paper and walk away. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Mm-hmm.
It is our fault. We have to accept this. It is our fault that we are not understanding the need and the art of education. It is just that simple. I know, and I ran across them. You got some police officers who get upset with you because they realize you're smarter than they are. Mm-hmm. Okay? And no officer wants to be looked at like you know more than I do. But there's a way to go about doing that. Chief, I can call you a dummy without saying dummy. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
But there's no need me getting into an argument with you because that's what you want. You want me to come down to your level. We have to stop doing that.
Sure.
We've got to stop doing it. I was telling young one boy, he said, police stopped me, and I asked him why you stopped me and why you need to see my driver's license and my registration and what's this all about. You missed the whole point. He's got the right to ask you for your driver's license and registration.
That's correct.
Understand? Give it to him, and when he gives it back to you, then you can ask him, why'd you stop me? These are the things that people in our communities must learn. You know, when you were here, we had an all-out campaign to educate people.
Sure.
Listen, Chief, if we go back to the simple thing of telling our people, stop leaving your Mercedes sitting in your driveway running because you got to have your cup of Maxwell. All you're doing is setting some 15-year-old up to steal your car. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
That's right. Well, you know, you touched on a couple of things, Phil. One of the important things is that whole education piece, because, again, it's very important that the citizens understand what can and cannot occur during a traffic stop. Now, I'm not going to get into all those things, but, you know, during a traffic stop, the officers absolutely have a right to ask for certain things and to give certain information and instructions and so forth. That's the Reader's Digest version. But again, if you don't know and no one has taught you, and now you are sitting on the side of 95 up near, you know, the Prince George's Montgomery County line, and you're just really acting belligerent, and everything the officer is asking you to do is acceptable within the guidelines of the law, then you look crazy, and you're going to end up just having a very difficult day that day. And it's so important that, once again, instead of everyone running down to the station because they heard, you know, Sister Goodnight at prayer meeting say, this is what happened to me during this traffic stop, that someone says, you know what, why don't we have the police to come in and talk to us about traffic stops and some other people, some other folks who deal with this stuff every day? Or, you know, why don't we take advantage of, you know, the citizens police academies and those types of opportunities so that, number one, we can have a better understanding of what's going on, and number two, this is another way of creating better partnerships so that we can work through these issues together. So again, as you said very eloquently, so that when burglaries are happening or other things are happening in the community, we're not standing there saying, well, how come the police didn't do this? How come the police didn't do that? Why didn't the sheriff do this? Why didn't the state troopers do that? You know, we understand that everyone has a role in this, and so that helps to make it better.
Well, here is another piece of this problem. All of those things that you mentioned, I'd almost guarantee you 8 out of 10 people, if you suggested those things to them, they would tell you how busy they are.
There you go. I was getting ready to go there.
I hear that more than a little bit of how busy.
That's right.
People are. Now, I've analyzed this being really busy syndrome. What I tell you is, it's not that we are that busy. We would rather have somebody else do it for us if we can make that happen. You know, they got a commercial that comes on about if you need somebody to do repairs in your house or this. And then the neighbor asks the question, well, do you know somebody who does roofs? And the other neighbor says, well, yeah, I do. Yeah. And they say, well, look, can you call him and have him come? This is what we go through.
That's right.
We use that excuse because it sounds good. That if I'm busy, that means I'm somebody. I'm about something.
That's right.
So you go do it for me and take care of it. The problem is nobody stops and says to that person, and I have some knockdown drag-outs over this, stop telling me about how busy you are. What makes you think you can bring your problems to me and drop them off, and then you go be busy? Let me take some time to tell you how to fix this. Because if you're too busy to fix it, then it's going to be your problem. But, Chief?
Yes, sir.
What we don't want to talk about is there is that part of society who wants you to keep talking about how busy you are.
Sure.
There is that segment of society that hopes you don't ever stop to learn anything.
Sure.
Don't teach your children, keep being busy, and don't teach your children anything, because if you don't teach them anything, that segment of America that I'm speaking of, it makes it easier for them to do the things that they do and get away with it.
Well, you know.
Now, we too often, because we don't take the time out to learn these things, some folks on that other side know us better than we know ourselves.
Well,
you know, that guy that you stop and he starts talking about his rights and you don't have the right to stop me, that officer starts to thinking, I wonder how many wants and warrants he's got out for me.
Yep.
You understand?
Yep.
See, we need to stop and think about what they are thinking about. I had this kind of, I don't want to say knockdown drag out, but you know, I wasn't scared. I had to tell this one officer who was saying to me, you know, I'm not a racist. And I said to him, the truth is, I never called you a racist. But I believe you are a bigot. There is a difference. I'm not telling you you hate everybody and you burn crosses. That's not what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is you look for the weaknesses of black people. You make it your business to look for the weaknesses of black people. Now, if you don't find any, you move on. And I'm like a racist doesn't care whether they find a weakness or not. They're going to do what they do. The racist is the easy one to deal with. The bigot is the scary one. And they are out there, but we have to understand that. And I'm in no way saying that we need to be bigots. We don't. In fact, we need to be better than that. Mm-hmm. But we must be educated enough to know it when we see it. And we don't. We just simply don't.
Well, and that... Yeah, and that gets right back to the whole point of education and passing on history, because, you know, historically, and you know, I think we all know the history of many races of people who have come here, some by choice, some by force, that have faced all kinds of obstacles. But again, if you're not aware of your history, you don't read, you're not involved, you'll never know how to overcome obstacles without getting swallowed up in some of these things. And you know, there you have the problem. For example, the other night we were at a Halloween event, and not only were we giving out candy, but it was another opportunity to get young people to register to vote. And it was just amazing that, you know, people were coming through with like glad bags full of candy. I mean, they were literally dragging them. And when you ask some folks, well, hey, are you registered to vote? No, you want to register? Well, no, not today. I really don't want to do that. But yet
they're busy.
Yeah,
they're busy.
But they sure took 10 seconds to grab that candy.
Well,
so, you know, so priorities can can sometimes just be a monster for some folks because they're not quite sure what is a priority over others. But again, that gets right back to the whole village concept. Is the village making the priority